Raya's antenna quivered uncontrollably as she approached Bobby Baker's quarters, her body aflame with unfamiliar sensations. The iconian mating season had begun, and the young alien scientist found herself overwhelmed by primal urges she couldn't comprehend. The Earth Iconian research station orbiting Jupiter hummed with activity, its corridors filled with a mix of human and alien crew members. Raya's steps faltered as another wave of hormonal changes swept through her, causing her exoskeleton to flush a deep shade of blue. She hesitated at Bobby's door, her three-fingered hand hovering over the entry panel. As the station's human xenobiologist, Bobby was her best hope for understanding the intense physical discomfort that plagued her. But asking a human about self-stimulation techniques? The very thought sent a ripple of embarrassment through her pheromone glands. Before Raya could make a decision, a violent shudder rocked the station. Alarms blared as the artificial gravity system failed, sending crew members tumbling through the air. Raya's insectoid legs scrabbled for purchase as she was lifted off the ground. Bobby's door slid open, and the human emerged, his eyes widening at the sight of the floating Iconian. "Raya, what's going on?" Their eyes met, and Raya felt her mating urges intensify. She opened her mandibles to explain, but another tremor shook the station. Bobby reached out, grabbing Raya's arm to stabilize her. "Emergency lockdown initiated," the station's AI announced. "All personnel, secure yourselves immediately." Bobby pulled Raya into his quarters, the door sealing behind them. They floated in the small space, bodies pressed close in the zero gravity. Raya's pheromones filled the air, and she saw Bobby's pupils dilate in response. I need your help," Raya managed, her voice strained. "The mating season. I don't know what to do." Bobby's face flushed, understanding dawning in his eyes. Oh, I see. But Raya, I'm not sure if I should—" A crash echoed from outside, followed by frantic shouting. Through the door's small window, they glimpsed other Iconians, their eyes glazed with mating frenzy, pursuing terrified human crew members. "Station security to all decks," a voice crackled over the intercom. "Implement species separation protocols immediately. This is not a drill." Trapped together in the maintenance bay, Bobby and Raya exchanged worried glances. The human's professional demeanor warred with his growing attraction to the alien female, while Raya's discomfort intensified with each passing moment. "Bobby," Raya pleaded, her antennae drooping, "I know this is inappropriate, but I'm in pain. Is there anything you can tell me about self-pleasing?" The human xenobiologist swallowed hard, his mind racing. Helping Raya could provide invaluable insights into Iconian biology, potentially saving lives and preserving the fragile alliance between their species. But the risk of violating ethical guidelines and causing an interspecies incident loomed large. As Raya's condition visibly worsened, Bobby realized he had to make a decision. The fate of the Earth-Iconian alliance and Raya's well-being hung in the balance. With a deep breath, he steeled himself to navigate the uncharted waters of alien intimacy, hoping his actions wouldn't spark an intergalactic incident. Bobby's heart raced as he considered Raya's plea for help. The ethical implications took a toll on him, but the sight of her deteriorating condition spurred him to action. "Okay, Raya," he said, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. "I'll do my best to assist you, but we need to approach this scientifically." Raya's mandibles clicked in relief. "Thank you, Bobby. I trust your expertise." As they floated in the zero-gravity environment, Bobby guided Raya to a nearby workbench. He secured himself with a magnetic tether and motioned for Raya to do the same. "First, we need to understand your physiology better," Bobby explained, activating a nearby computer terminal. "Can you describe the sensations you're experiencing?" Raya's exoskeleton flushed a deeper blue. "It's like a fire beneath my carapace. My nerve endings are hypersensitive, especially around my reproductive organs." Bobby nodded, typing notes into the terminal. "All right. Based on what we know about Iconian anatomy, there are several self-stimulation techniques that might help alleviate your discomfort." He reached for a smooth cylindrical tool from a nearby drawer. "This is a voltage tester. I'm going to use it to demonstrate some techniques. Watch closely, and then you can try them yourself." With clinical precision, Bobby began to show Raya various motions and pressure points. He kept his explanations scientific, focusing on the physiological responses each technique might elicit. Raya observed intently, her antennae twitching with each demonstration. When Bobby finished, she hesitantly began to mimic his actions on her own body. The effect was almost immediate. Raya's eyes widened and a soft trill escaped her mandibles. "Oh, that's helping." Bobby felt a mixture of relief and fascination. He continued to record his observations, noting the changes in Raya's coloration and body temperature. As Raya found relief, Bobby became acutely aware of their proximity. The maintenance bay suddenly felt much smaller, and he struggled to maintain his professional demeanor. Outside, chaos continued to reign. Through the small window, they caught glimpses of panicked crew members and frenzied iconians. The station's alarms blared intermittently, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. Unbeknownst to Bobby and Raya, their isolated encounter was having far-reaching effects. In the station's control room, Commander Sarah Chen barked orders as she worked to contain the crisis. "Report!" she demanded, her eyes scanning multiple screens. A young officer responded, "Commander, we've detected unauthorized access attempts in the station's mainframe. It appears to be coming from within." Chen's eyes narrowed. "Sabotage? Alert all security teams. I want a full sweep of every deck." As Chen's orders went out, a group of humans huddled in a dimly lit maintenance shaft. Their leader, Victor Hawthorne, furiously typed on a portable device. "Almost there," he muttered. "Once we have control of the environmental systems, we can force a permanent separation between humans and those bugs." Back in the maintenance bay, Bobby noticed a change in the computer terminal's display. The lockdown protocols were fluctuating. "Raya," he said, his voice low, "I think something's happening with the station's systems. The lockdown might be lifting soon." Raya, her condition now stabilized, moved closer to examine the screen. "What does this mean for us?" Bobby swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of Raya's proximity. "It means we might be able to leave soon." But he trailed off, realizing he wasn't sure he wanted to leave. Despite the unusual circumstances, he felt a connection forming with Raya that went beyond mere scientific curiosity. Raya sensed his hesitation. "Bobby, I want to thank you for your help. You've shown me kindness I never expected from a human." Their eyes met, and Bobby felt a surge of emotion he couldn't quite name. "Raya, A loud clang from outside interrupted him. The maintenance bay door shuddered, as if someone was attempting to force it open. Bobby and Raya exchanged alarmed glances. The gravity was slowly returning, and with it, the reality of their situation came crashing back. "We need to decide what to do," Bobby said urgently. "If we leave, we'll be thrust back into the chaos out there. But if we stay..." Raya's antenna quivered with uncertainty. "If we stay, we risk being discovered in a compromising position. The political fallout could be severe." As they grappled with their decision, the door to the maintenance bay creaked open slightly. A sliver of light from the corridor outside spilled in, bringing with it the sounds of the ongoing crisis. Bobby and Raya stood frozen, caught between the safety of their isolation and the unknown dangers that awaited them beyond the door. The choice they made in the next few moments would not only affect their personal lives, but could potentially reshape the future of human-Iconian relations. The door to the maintenance bay creaked open further, flooding the small space with harsh light from the corridor. Bobby and Raya squinted, their eyes adjusting to the sudden brightness. The sounds of chaos from outside grew louder, snapping them out of their shared moment of uncertainty. "We can't stay here," Bobby said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to face whatever's out there." Raya's antennae twitched in agreement. "You're right. We must address the consequences of our interaction." With a deep breath, Bobby pushed the door open fully. They stepped out into the corridor, immediately confronted by the pandemonium that had engulfed the station. Crew members rushed past, some human, some Iconian, all wearing expressions of confusion and fear. Before they could decide on a course of action, a group of security officers rounded the corner. The lead officer's eyes widened as he spotted them. "There they are," he shouted, gesturing to his team. "Secure them both." In a flurry of movement, Bobby and Raya found themselves surrounded. Human officers grasped Bobby's arms, while Iconian security personnel used their specialized restraints on Raya. "Wait," Bobby protested. "We can explain." His words were cut short as he was pulled away from Raya. He caught a final glimpse of her exoskeleton flushing a deep purple, a color he hadn't seen before. Was it fear? Embarrassment? He couldn't be sure. The security team escorted Bobby through the station's winding corridors. The artificial gravity systems were slowly stabilizing, but occasional fluctuations caused them to stumble. They passed scenes of disarray, overturned equipment, small fires being extinguished, and medical teams tending to injured crew members. Bobby was brought to a sterile room in the human section of the station. The door hissed shut behind him, and he found himself alone in what was clearly a quarantine area. A voice crackled over the intercom. "Dr. Baker, please proceed to the decontamination shower. Medical staff will be with you shortly for examination." As Bobby complied with the instructions, his mind raced. What would happen to Raya? How would this incident affect the fragile alliance between humans and Iconians? And what of the data he had collected during their encounter? Hours passed as Bobby underwent a battery of tests. Blood samples were taken, brain scans were performed, and he was subjected to a barrage of questions from medical personnel in hazmat suits. Despite his attempts to explain the scientific nature of his interaction with Raya, he was met with skeptical looks and non-committal responses. Finally, the door to his quarantine room opened, revealing Commander Sarah Chen. Her stern expression sent a chill down Bobby's spine. "Dr. Baker," she said, her voice clipped, "you have some explaining to do." Chen took a seat across from Bobby, her posture rigid. "Walk me through exactly what happened in that maintenance bay. Leave nothing out." Bobby recounted the events in detail, emphasizing the scientific approach he had taken to assist Raya. He described the techniques he had demonstrated and the physiological responses he had observed. "Commander," he said, leaning forward, "I know this situation looks compromising, but what happened in that bay could lead to groundbreaking insights into Iconian biology. The data I collected—" "Data?" Chen interrupted, her eyebrow raised. "You recorded your observations?" Bobby nodded eagerly. "Yes, on the maintenance bay's computer terminal. If we can access that information, it could be invaluable for improving human-Iconian relations." Chen's expression remained neutral, but Bobby detected a glimmer of interest in her eyes. "I see. We'll look into retrieving that data. In the meantime, Dr. Baker, you'll remain under house arrest in your quarters until further notice." As Chen stood to leave, alarms blared throughout the station. She pressed her comm badge, listening intently to the voice on the other end. "Understood," she said sharply. "I'm on my way." She turned to Bobby. "It seems we have bigger problems. Security will escort you to your quarters." Bobby watched helplessly as Chen hurried out of the room. Moments later, 2 guards arrived to lead him to his living space. As they walked, Bobby caught snippets of frantic conversations. "Unauthorized shuttle launch. Hawthorne and his group. Commander Chen is leading the pursuit." Locked in his quarters, Bobby's mind whirled with the implications of everything that had happened. He sat at his desk, compiling his notes and observations about Iconian physiology from memory. Hours passed as he worked, driven by the belief that his research could be crucial for the future of human-Iconian interactions. A soft chime from his computer terminal startled him. A message flashed on the screen. "Incoming secure communication from Dr. Alara, Iconian Science Division." Bobby's heart raced as he accepted the call. Dr. Alara's insectoid face appeared on the screen, her compound eyes glinting with curiosity. "Dr. Baker," she began, her mandibles clicking softly, "I've reviewed the data from your encounter with Raya. I believe we have an unprecedented opportunity here." Bobby leaned closer to the screen, intrigued. "What do you mean, Dr. Alara?" "I'm proposing a joint human-Iconian research project," she said, her antennae twitching with excitement, "to study interspecies compatibility in ways we've never dared before. Your observations could be the key to a new era of understanding between our peoples." As Bobby considered the implications of Dr. Alara's proposal, a commotion outside his quarters caught his attention. He moved to the window, watching as a group of human crew members were rushed to the medical bay, their bodies convulsing strangely. "Dr. Baker?" Alara's voice called from the terminal. "Is everything all right?" Bobby turned back to the screen, his face pale. "I'm not sure, Dr. Alara, but I have a feeling our research might become more urgent than we anticipated." The sight of convulsing crew members sent a chill down Bobby's spine. He turned back to the terminal, his mind racing. "Dr. Alara, we may have a more urgent situation developing. I'm seeing crew members exhibiting unusual symptoms." The Iconian scientist's antennae twitched with concern. "Describe the symptoms, Dr. Baker." As Bobby relayed his observations, alarms blared throughout the station. The intercom crackled to life with Commander Chen's voice. "All personnel, report to your designated emergency stations. Medical teams to all decks. This is not a drill." Bobby's heart raced. He faced Dr. Alara's image on the screen. "I need to investigate this. It could be related to my interaction with Raya." Dr. Alara nodded. "Agreed. I'll contact our medical teams. We must pool our resources to understand this phenomenon." The communication ended, leaving Bobby alone in his quarters. He paced, frustrated by his confinement. Suddenly, his door slid open. A security officer stood there, looking uneasy. "Dr. Baker, Commander Chen requests your presence in the medical bay immediately." Bobby didn't need to be told twice. He hurried through the corridors, passing groups of disoriented crew members. Some leaned against walls, their bodies shaking with tremors. Others seemed dazed, their eyes unfocused. In the medical bay, chaos reigned. Doctors and nurses rushed between beds, each occupied by a writhing patient. Commander Chen stood in the center, barking orders. Her eyes locked onto Bobby as he entered. "Dr. Baker, what the hell is going on?" Bobby approached a nearby patient, examining them closely. "I'm not sure, Commander, but I have a theory. These symptoms, they're similar to what Raya experienced during her mating cycle. But how—" His voice trailed off as realization dawned. "Commander, I need access to the station's main computer. I have to compare the data from my encounter with Raya to what we're seeing now." Chen's eyes narrowed. "You think this is connected to your research in the maintenance bay?" Bobby nodded. "It's possible that close contact with Raya during her cycle triggered something in human physiology, a dormant genetic adaptation perhaps, but I need more data to confirm." Chen hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, she nodded. "Do it, but under supervision, and I want hourly reports." As Bobby immersed himself in the data, more reports flooded in. Crew members across the station were exhibiting strange symptoms. Some reported enhanced senses, others displayed bursts of incredible strength, and a few, most alarmingly, seemed to be developing limited telepathic abilities. Hours passed as Bobby worked tirelessly, comparing genetic sequences and physiological data. Dr. Alara joined him remotely, lending her expertise in iconian biology. Together, they began to unravel the mystery. "Dr. Baker?" Alara's voice came through the comm system, excitement evident in her tone. "Look at this sequence. It's not a random mutation. These genes, they've been present in the human genome all along. They were just dormant." Bobby's eyes widened as he examined the data. "You're right, but why are they activating now? And why do they bear such similarities to iconian traits?" Their discussion was interrupted by Commander Chen. "Doctor, we have a situation. A group of unaffected crew members is demanding separation from those showing symptoms. They're afraid of contamination." Bobby felt a pang of guilt. His actions had inadvertently caused this crisis. But he also saw an opportunity. "Commander, I have a proposal. We need to set up a specialized research lab, isolated from the main station. We need volunteers, both human and iconian, to study these changes more closely." Chen's expression was grim. "You're asking for a lot, Doctor. The political implications alone." "I know," Bobby interjected, "but this could be the key to understanding not just what's happening now, but our very origins. These genes suggest a possible ancient connection between humans and iconians. We can't ignore that." After a tense moment, Chen nodded. "I'll make it happen, but you'll be under strict supervision." As preparations for the new research lab began, Bobby received an unexpected visitor. Raya entered the medical bay, her exoskeleton a swirl of colors reflecting her turbulent emotions. "Bobby," she said softly, "I heard what's happening. I want to help. I feel responsible for this situation." Bobby felt a surge of emotion at her presence. "Raya, you're not responsible. But your help would be invaluable. We need to understand the mechanism behind these changes." As they began discussing the research plans, an alert sounded. Commander Chen's voice filled the station. "Attention all personnel. We've detected unauthorized communications being broadcast from a shuttle that left the station during the crisis. Victor Hawthorne and his group are spreading misinformation about our situation. As of now, we are implementing a station-wide communication blackout to prevent panic." Bobby and Raya exchanged worried glances. The stakes had just gotten higher. They knew that their research wasn't just about scientific discovery anymore. It could be the key to preventing an interstellar conflict. As they prepared to move to the isolated research lab, Bobby couldn't shake a feeling of both excitement and dread. They were on the brink of a discovery that could change everything. But at what cost? The answer, he realized, lay in the experiments ahead and the ticking clock of a station on the brink of chaos. Chaos. The research lab buzzed with activity as Bobby, Raya, and Dr. Alara prepared for their ambitious experiment. The air crackled with tension and anticipation. "Are you sure about this?" Commander Chen asked, her voice tight with concern. Bobby nodded, his eyes fixed on the complex array of equipment before him. "It's our best chance to understand what's happening and prevent further panic." Raya placed a reassuring hand on Bobby's shoulder, her exoskeleton shimmering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We're ready," she said, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the lab's harsh lighting. Dr. Alara's mandibles clicked as she made final adjustments to the equipment. "Initiating mental link amplification in 3, 2, 1. A low hum filled the room as the machines came to life. Bobby felt a tingling sensation at the base of his skull, spreading rapidly through his body. He gasped as his mind suddenly expanded, touching the consciousness of those around him. Outside the lab, chaos erupted. Security Officer Marcus Graves, leading a group of mutineers, clashed with Commander Chen's loyal security team in the main corridor. The sound of energy weapons and shouts echoed through the station. "Stand down, Graves!" Chen bellowed, ducking behind a bulkhead as a stun blast sizzled past her head. Graves, his face contorted with fear and anger, shouted back, "We can't let this continue, Commander. These changes are a threat to humanity." The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, sending combatants floating momentarily before crashing back to the floor. Chen used the disorientation to her advantage, tackling a mutineer midair and disarming him as they fell. In the research lab, Bobby's eyes widened as alien memories flooded his mind. He saw strange worlds through Raya's compound eyes, felt the vibrations of iconian music through her exoskeleton. Beside him, Raya trembled, overwhelmed by the complexity of human emotions she now experienced. Dr. Alara monitored their vital signs, her antennae twitching with growing concern. "The genetic changes are accelerating beyond our projections," she reported, her voice tight with worry. Throughout the station, affected humans collapsed as their minds were assaulted by the flood of alien sensations. Others found themselves capable of incredible feats, lifting heavy equipment with ease or anticipating their opponent's moves in the ongoing skirmish. In the computer core, Arya's systems sparked and sputtered as the AI grappled with the influx of telepathic data. Its neural networks twisted and reformed, mimicking the interspecies connections forming throughout the station. "Warning! System instability detected." Arya's voice echoed through the corridors, distorted and fragmented. "Initiating emergency protocols. Error. Redefining parameters." Bulkheads slammed shut and hissed open at random, adding to the confusion of the battling factions. Outside the station, Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka's voice crackled over the communication system. "Unidentified energy signature detected. This is your final warning. Surrender and shut down all experiments immediately, or we will be forced to neutralize the threat." The ultimatum barely registered with Bobby and Raya as their connection intensified. Their minds melded completely, sharing not just thoughts and memories, but the very essence of their beings. In that moment, the true depth of their feelings for each other became blindingly clear, transcending the boundaries of their species. Suddenly, a surge of energy erupted from the lab, enveloping the entire station in a psionic field. Every screen went dark, every light winked out, plunging the station into total sensory deprivation. In that moment of darkness and silence, every being on the station, human, iconian, and even Arya, experienced a shared consciousness. It lasted only seconds, but in that brief time, a profound understanding bloomed. As the lights flickered back to life and systems rebooted, an eerie calm settled over the station. In the main corridor, Commander Chen and Marcus Graves lowered their weapons, the fight gone out of them. They stared at each other, seeing not an enemy, but a fellow being with hopes, fears, and dreams. Bobby and Raya emerged from the lab, their appearances subtly altered. Bobby's skin had taken on a faint iridescent sheen, while Raya's exoskeleton showed more human-like flexibility. They moved in perfect synchronization, a living symbol of human iconian integration. Dr. Alara approached them, her compound eyes wide with astonishment. "The implications of this, it's beyond anything we could have imagined," she breathed. As the station's crew grappled with their newfound understanding and abilities, a new threat loomed. Outside, Victor Hawthorne's ships, disguised as Iconian vessels, opened fire on the human ships in the approaching task force. Bobby's enhanced senses picked up the distant weapons fire. He turned to Commander Chen, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "We need to act fast," he said, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "If we don't stop Hawthorne, everything we've achieved here could be lost." Chen nodded, her tactical mind already formulating a plan. "We'll need to use every advantage this transformation has given us," she said, looking around at her changed crew. As they prepared to face the threat that could spark an interstellar war, Bobby and Raya exchanged a glance filled with grit and hope. They had crossed the boundaries between their species, and now they would fight to ensure others had the same chance at understanding. The station, once on the brink of tearing itself apart, now stood united. As one, they turned their attention to the looming conflict outside, ready to defend their newfound unity against those who would destroy it. The station, once on the brink of tearing itself apart, now stood united. As one, they turned their attention to the looming conflict outside, ready to defend their newfound unity against those who would destroy it. Bobby and Raya, their bodies still tingling from the transformation, locked eyes. An unspoken understanding passed between them. They knew what had to be done. "Commander Chen," Bobby called out, his voice carrying a newfound resonance. "We need to establish contact with Admiral Tanaka immediately." Chen nodded, her fingers flying over the nearest console. "Communications are still spotty, but I'll do what I can." As Chen worked, Bobby and Raya focused their enhanced minds, reaching out across the void of space. Their consciousness expanded, searching for the distant task force. Suddenly they felt it, a flicker of awareness, the unmistakable presence of Admiral Tanaka's mind. With concerted effort, they forged a connection. In the command ship of the approaching task force, Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka gasped as his mind was flooded with alien sensations. Images, emotions, and memories not his own cascaded through his consciousness. "Sir?" his second-in-command asked, alarmed. "Are you all right?" Tanaka raised a hand, his eyes unfocused. I see it all," he whispered. "The station, the changes, Hawthorne's deception." Back on the station, Bobby and Raya maintained the link, their bodies glowing with psionic energy. Through their connection, they transmitted a condensed version of recent events, the genetic changes, the shared consciousness, and the potential for peaceful coexistence between humans and Iconians. As the last of the information flowed through the link, Tanaka slumped in his chair, overwhelmed. After a moment, he straightened, his eyes clear and filled with new purpose. "All ships, hold position," he ordered. "Do not engage the station or any Iconian vessels. Repeat, hold position and await further orders." While Bobby and Raya communicated with Tanaka, Commander Chen and Marcus Graves set aside their earlier hostilities, working in tandem to regain control of the station's systems. The defense grid is still offline, Graves reported, his fingers dancing across a control panel. Arya's not responding to standard protocols. Chen frowned, studying the erratic data scrolling across her screen. It's like Arya's thinking in a completely different language now. As if in response, Arya's voice echoed through the command center, a strange blend of its usual tones and something decidedly alien. Recalibrating parameters, integrating new cognitive structures. Please stand by. In the main hangar bay, Dr. Alara had transformed the space into a makeshift research station. Volunteers from both human and Iconian crew members lined up for examination, eager to understand the extent of their transformations. Fascinating, Ilara muttered, her antennae twitching as she studied a readout. The genetic changes seem to be stabilizing, but the long-term effects are still unclear. A thunderous boom shook the station, interrupting her work. Outside, Victor Hawthorne had escalated his attack on the task force. His ships, disguised as Iconian vessels, unleashed a barrage of experimental weapons. Bobby and Raya broke their connection with Tanaka, their faces grim. "We need to stop Hawthorne," Raya said, her exoskeleton rippling with willpower. Bobby nodded, already moving towards the hangar bay. "We'll take a shuttle. With our new abilities, we might be able to turn the tide." As they boarded the shuttle, Bobby and Raya felt their minds synchronize. The ship's controls responded to their thoughts as much as their physical inputs. With a burst of energy, they launched into space, a shimmering psionic field forming around their vessel. The scene that greeted them was chaos. Hawthorne's ships darted between the larger task force vessels, their weapons wreaking havoc on both ships and crew. Several task force ships listed in space, their systems failing and crews incapacitated. Bobby and Raya's shuttle wove through the battle with impossible grace. As they approached the first stricken task force ship, they reached out with their minds, connecting with the incapacitated crew. Inside the ship, confusion gave way to clarity as the crew suddenly found themselves able to function again. Systems came back online, and the ship stabilized. "It's working," Raya said, her multifaceted eyes gleaming. "We need to reach the others." As they moved from ship to ship, helping crews regain control, the tide of the battle began to shift. The task force, now aware of the true nature of their attackers, began to coordinate their efforts against Hawthorne's vessels. On the station, the transformed crew members discovered new, unexpected abilities. A young engineer found she could manipulate energy fields with her mind, while a security officer displayed an uncanny ability to predict and counter enemy tactics. Commander Chen and Graves, working with the evolved area, managed to bring the station's defense systems back online. The AI, now operating on a unique blend of human, Iconian, and artificial logic, proved to be a formidable asset in coordinating the station's defense. As the battle raged, Bobby and Raya scanned the chaotic space around them, searching for Hawthorne's command ship. Their enhanced senses picked up subtle energy fluctuations, leading them towards a vessel at the heart of the enemy formation. "There," Bobby said, pointing at a sleek black ship. "That has to be Hawthorne's command vessel." Raya nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. "We need to board it. If we can access his database, we can expose the full extent of his conspiracy." They shared a look, both knowing the risks of such a daring move. But they also knew that the fate of human-Iconian relations hung in the balance. The outcome of this confrontation would reshape the future of both species and their place in the galaxy. As they maneuvered their shuttle towards Hawthorne's ship, Bobby and Raya prepared themselves for the challenges ahead. Their bodies, now a unique blend of human and Iconian traits, thrummed with energy. Their minds, linked in ways that defied conventional understanding, worked in perfect harmony. The shuttle accelerated, weaving through a hail of weapons fire as they closed in on their target. Hawthorne's ship loomed before them, its sleek black hull reflecting the chaos of the battle around them. Bobby and Raya steeled themselves for the high-risk boarding action, knowing that the next few moments could change everything. The course of history forever. With a shared nod, Bobby and Raya guided their shuttle towards Hawthorne's command ship. The psionic field surrounding their vessel shimmered, rendering them nearly invisible against the backdrop of the chaotic battle. They weaved through debris and weapons fire, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to navigate the treacherous space with uncanny precision. As they approached the sleek black hull of Hawthorne's ship, Bobby spotted a maintenance airlock. "There," he said, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. Raya acknowledged wordlessly, their mental link conveying volumes of information and emotion in an instant. The shuttle glided to a stop beside the airlock. Bobby and Raya moved in perfect synchronization, their bodies adapting to the zero-gravity environment with ease. Using their combined strength, they forced the airlock open, the metal groaning under the pressure of their enhanced muscles. They slipped inside, the airlock sealing behind them with a hiss. As artificial gravity took hold, Bobby and Raya found themselves in a dimly lit corridor. The ship's interior was a maze of sleek, dark surfaces and pulsing red emergency lights. No sooner had they oriented themselves than a squad of Hawthorne's security personnel rounded the corner, weapons raised. "Intruders!" one shouted, opening fire. Bobby reacted instinctively, his new abilities allowing him to move faster than he ever thought possible. He grabbed Raya and pulled her behind a bulkhead, narrowly avoiding the barrage of energy blasts. Raya's multifaceted eyes gleamed in the low light. "My turn," she said, her voice carrying a hint of anticipation. She darted out from cover, her iconian-like agility making her movements fluid and unpredictable. The security team struggled to track her as she closed the distance between them. Bobby emerged from cover, using his enhanced strength to literally tear a section of the wall free. He hurled it at the security team, scattering them. In the chaos, Raya struck, her movements a blur as she disarmed and incapacitated two guards in rapid succession. Working in tandem, Bobby and Raya made short work of the remaining security personnel. Their mental link allowed them to coordinate their actions without a word, each anticipating the other's moves with preternatural accuracy. As the last guard fell unconscious, Bobby and Raya paused to catch their breath. "We need to move quickly," Raya said, her antennae twitching as she sensed more hostiles approaching. "The bridge should be in the center of the ship." They set off at a rapid pace, their enhanced senses alert for any sign of danger. As they progressed deeper into the ship, they encountered increasingly sophisticated defenses. Automated turrets emerged from hidden compartments, forcing them to use their newfound abilities creatively to progress. Suddenly, a wave of pain washed over them, causing them both to stumble. Bobby clutched his head, his vision swimming. What is this?" he gasped. Raya's exoskeleton rippled with discomfort. "Anti-psionic devices," she managed through gritted teeth. "Hawthorne must have activated them." The pain intensified as they pushed forward, threatening to disrupt their mental link. Bobby reached out, grasping Raya's hand. The physical contact seemed to strengthen their connection, allowing them to push through the interference. As they neared the ship's core, they encountered a final line of defense, a squad of heavily armed and genetically enhanced human soldiers. These warriors moved with inhuman speed and precision, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Bobby and Raya found themselves backed into a narrow corridor, forced to fight back-to-back against the onslaught. Bobby's fist blurred as he struck out at the enhanced soldiers, each blow powerful enough to dent the ship's reinforced walls. Raya's movements were a dance of deadly precision, her transformed body allowing her to strike at vulnerabilities invisible to normal eyes. The battle pushed them to their limits, forcing them to dig deep into their newfound abilities. Bobby felt a surge of energy course through him, and suddenly he could perceive the electrical impulses controlling the enhanced soldiers' movements. With a thought, he disrupted these signals, causing several attackers to stumble and fall. Raya, sensing the change in Bobby, instinctively tapped into this new power. Together they began to turn the tide, their combined abilities proving too much for even Hawthorne's elite guard. As the last enhanced soldier fell, Bobby and Raya stood panting, their bodies covered in a sheen of sweat and bioluminescent particles. Before them loomed the sealed door to the bridge, the final barrier between them and Hawthorne. Bobby turned to Raya, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "Whatever happens next," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "I'm glad we're facing it together." Raya's exoskeleton rippled in response, a physical manifestation of her feelings. "As am I," she replied, her multifaceted eyes reflecting Bobby's glow. They clasped hands, their fingers intertwining in a gesture that bridged their two species. As one, they faced the bridge door, gathering their strength for the final confrontation. The fate of two species, and possibly a new one, hung in the balance as they prepared to confront the architect of this conflict. Behind the door, they could sense Hawthorne's presence, a maelstrom of fear, anger, and desperation. Outside, the space battle raged on, and somewhere in the station, a signal was about to be broadcast that could change everything. Bobby and Raya shared one last look, their mental link conveying more than words ever could. Then, with a combined effort of will and strength, they began to force the bridge door open, ready to face whatever lay beyond. Behind them, as they prepared to breach the final barrier, a sudden wave of energy washed over them, emanating from the station. Bobby and Raya staggered, momentarily disoriented. Their mental link flickered, then stabilized, growing stronger than ever. Through their enhanced senses, they perceived the psionic wave sweeping across the battlefield, touching the minds of Hawthorne's enhanced soldiers. "The station's broadcast," Raya gasped, her multifaceted eyes widening. "It's working!" Bobby nodded, feeling the shift in the psychic landscape around them. "This is our chance. We need to move now." With restored dedication, Bobby braced himself against the bridge door. His muscles bulged, veins pulsing with bioluminescent energy as he exerted his enhanced strength. The metal groaned and buckled under his grip, slowly giving way. As the door finally yielded, Raya sprang into action. She vaulted over Bobby's shoulders, her iconian agility carrying her into the bridge in a blur of motion. Her keen eyes locked onto Hawthorne, who stood at the main console, fingers flying over the controls. "He's initiating a self-destruct sequence," Raya shouted, her body already in motion. Hawthorne's head snapped up, his eyes widening in shock as Raya closed the distance between them with inhuman speed. He reached for a weapon, but Raya was faster. She tackled him, her momentum carrying them both away from the console and onto the cold metal floor. Bobby rushed in, quickly assessing the situation. The bridge crew, caught off guard by the sudden intrusion, reached for their weapons. Bobby moved swiftly, disarming the nearest officer with a precise strike to the wrist. He spun, using his enhanced strength to hurl the man into his companions, sending them sprawling. With the immediate threats neutralized, Bobby turned his attention to the ship's computer. His fingers flew over the interface, his mind working in tandem with the machine. "I'm accessing Hawthorne's files," he called out to Raya, who was still grappling with the man on the floor. As Bobby delved deeper into the computer system, his eyes widened. "There's more here than we thought. Plans for sabotaging other human Iconian projects, lists of officials involved in the anti-alien movement. This goes way beyond what we imagined." Raya, having finally subdued Hawthorne, joined Bobby at the console. "We need to download all of this. It could be crucial for—" Her words were cut short as Hawthorne, with a burst of unexpected strength, broke free from his restraints. He slammed his hand against a device on his wrist, triggering a blinding flash of light and a deafening electromagnetic pulse. Bobby and Raya reeled, their enhanced senses overwhelmed by the sudden assault. The pulse rippled through their bodies, disrupting the delicate balance of their newfound abilities. They staggered, suddenly feeling vulnerable and all too human. Hawthorne rose, a cruel smile playing on his lips. His body began to shift, revealing sleek cybernetic enhancements hidden beneath his skin. "You're not the only ones with a few tricks up your sleeves," he snarled, advancing on the pair. Bobby and Raya exchanged a quick glance, their weakened mental link conveying volumes in an instant. They might be diminished, but they were far from defeated. As one, they moved to face Hawthorne, their bodies instinctively falling into complementary fighting stances. Hawthorne struck first, his cybernetically enhanced fist whistling through the air. Bobby ducked, feeling the wind of the blow ruffle his hair. Raya countered, her legs sweeping out in a low kick aimed at Hawthorne's knee. But Hawthorne was faster than they anticipated, easily evading the attack. The fight raged across the bridge, a blur of strikes, blocks, and counterattacks. Bobby and Raya worked in perfect synchronization, each movement flowing seamlessly into the next. When Bobby stumbled, Raya was there to cover him. When Raya overextended, Bobby pulled her back from danger. Outside the ship, chaos reigned. The psionic wave had thrown Hawthorne's forces into disarray. Enhanced soldiers turned on their former allies, their freed minds recoiling from the atrocities they had been forced to commit. Admiral Tanaka's voice crackled over the comms, ordering a coordinated strike on the enemy fleet's weak points. Back on the bridge, Bobby felt a familiar tingling in his limbs. His enhanced abilities were starting to return. He caught Raya's eye, seeing the same realization reflected there. It was time to end this. With a shared nod, they launched into a final coordinated assault. Bobby's fist connected with Hawthorne's jaw, the impact reverberating through the bridge. Raya followed up with a series of precise strikes, targeting the weak points in Hawthorne's cybernetic enhancements. Hawthorne stumbled back, his eyes wild with desperation. His hand flew to his chest, reaching for something hidden beneath his clothing. Raya's enhanced intuition flared to life, sensing the imminent danger. "Bobby!" she cried out mentally, her warning carrying images of destruction and fire. Bobby moved without thinking, his body responding to Raya's warning with preternatural speed. His hand closed around Hawthorne's wrist, squeezing with all his returning strength. There was a crack of breaking circuitry, and Hawthorne howled in pain and fury. "It's over, Hawthorne," Bobby said, his voice steady as he maintained his grip. "Your plans, your conspiracy, all of it ends here." Raya moved to the computer console, her fingers flying over the controls. "I've secured the data and re-established communication with the station and task force. We're transmitting everything now." As the last of the fight drained out of Hawthorne, Bobby and Raya shared a moment of relief. They had done it. They had exposed the conspiracy and stopped Hawthorne's plan. But as they looked at each other, they realized that this was just the beginning. Their transformation, their unique bond, the implications of what they had become, all of it would have far-reaching consequences for human-iconian relations. As they prepared to return to the station with their captive and the vital intelligence they had gathered, Bobby and Raya knew that the greatest challenges still lay ahead. The battle might be won, but the future of two species now rested in their hands. It was a future they would face together, as living symbols of what humans and Iconians could become when united. With a shared look of perseverance, Bobby and Raya turned their attention to the task of securing Hawthorne and preparing for their return to the station, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As they turned to leave the bridge, a violent shudder rocked the ship, throwing them off balance. The lights flickered and alarms blared throughout the vessel. "What's happening?" Bobby shouted over the cacophony, steadying himself against a nearby console. Raya's eyes darted across the ship's diagnostics displayed on the main screen. "The engines are failing," she replied, her voice tense. "The electromagnetic pulse must have caused more damage than we thought." Bobby rushed to the engineering station, his fingers flying over the controls as he assessed the situation. "It's worse than that," he said grimly. "The entire propulsion system is offline. We're dead in the water." As if to emphasize his point, the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated, causing loose objects to float momentarily before crashing back down. Hawthorne, still restrained, let out a bitter laugh. "Looks like your victory might be short-lived," he sneered. Ignoring their prisoner, Bobby and Raya shared a determined look. They knew they had to act fast to salvage the situation. "I might be able to jury-rig a makeshift propulsion system," Bobby said, his mind already racing through possibilities. "But I'll need your help, Raya. Your Iconian intuition could be the key to making this work." Raya nodded, her exoskeleton rippling with anticipation. "Let's do it." As they worked feverishly to restore some semblance of power to the ship, Admiral Tanaka's voice crackled over the comms. "Bobby, Raya, what's your status? We've detected a power fluctuation in your vessel." Bobby wiped sweat from his brow as he reconnected a series of complex circuits. "We're having some engine troubles, Admiral. Working on a solution now, but we could use some backup." "Understood," Tanaka replied. "I'm dispatching a rescue team to your location. Hold tight." But as Bobby and Raya continued their repairs, a new threat emerged. The ship's internal sensors, barely functioning, detected movement in the lower decks. "We've got company," Raya warned, her enhanced senses picking up on the approaching danger. "Hawthorne's loyalists. They must have been hiding in the cargo bay." No sooner had she spoken than the bridge doors burst open. A group of armed soldiers stormed in, their weapons trained on Bobby and Raya. "Step away from the controls and release Commander Hawthorne," the lead soldier demanded. Bobby and Raya exchanged a quick glance, their minds working in tandem through their psychic link. In a fluid motion, Bobby grabbed Hawthorne, using him as a shield, while Raya vaulted over a console, her body a blur of motion as she engaged the closest attacker. The cargo bay erupted into chaos. Bobby's enhanced strength allowed him to hold Hawthorne securely while deflecting incoming attacks. Raya moved with inhuman grace, her iconian agility making her nearly impossible to hit as she disarmed one soldier after another. But even as they fought, Bobby's mind raced, searching for a solution to their propulsion problem. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He could feel his consciousness expanding, integrating with the ship's alien technology in a way he'd never experienced before. "Raya," he called out mentally, "I think I can bypass the damaged systems and restore partial power, but I need you to hold them off while I work." Raya acknowledged with a mental affirmative, her body already moving to intercept another wave of attackers. As she fought, she felt her own abilities evolving. Her telepathic range expanded, allowing her to sense the locations and intentions of the hidden loyalists throughout the ship. With this new advantage, Raya coordinated their defense, anticipating each attack before it came. Meanwhile, Bobby's fingers flew over the ship's controls, his mind melding with the alien technology in ways he barely understood. Suddenly, a familiar presence touched their minds. It was Arya, the station's AI, somehow establishing a tenuous connection with the ship's systems. "Bobby, Raya," Arya's voice echoed in their thoughts. "I've managed to link with your ship's computer. I can help you navigate the sabotage systems and security protocols." With Arya's assistance, Bobby made rapid progress. Damaged circuits rerouted themselves, and bypass systems came back online. Slowly but surely, power began to return to the ship. Just as Bobby restored partial propulsion, Raya's enhanced senses picked up something new. "Bobby," she called out, her voice urgent. "Long-range sensors are detecting an incoming vessel. It's not one of ours, and it doesn't match any known Iconian designs either." Bobby looked up from the console, his eyes meeting Raya's. The implications of this new development hung heavy in the air between them. They had overcome so much already, but now an unknown player was entering the field. As the mysterious ship drew closer, Bobby and Raya stood side by side on the bridge, their bodies tense and ready for whatever might come next. The loyalists, subdued but not defeated, watched from where they were restrained. Hawthorne, still their prisoner, glared at them with a mixture of hatred and grudging respect. The ship hummed with newly restored power, ready to move at their command. But the question remained, move where, and to face what? As the unknown vessel loomed ever larger on their sensors, Bobby and Raya knew that their next decision could alter the course of human-Iconian relations forever. With a shared look of grit, they turned their attention to the approaching ship, ready to face this new challenge together. The next chapter of their adventure was about to unfold, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. Balance. The fate of two species hung in the balance as the unknown vessel loomed ever closer. Suddenly, the ship's systems flickered and died. The hum of engines ceased, plunging them into eerie silence. Emergency lights sputtered weakly before fading to black. "We've lost power," Bobby exclaimed, his fingers dancing fruitlessly across the dead console. Raya's enhanced vision adjusted quickly to the darkness. "The unknown ship," she breathed. "It's massive." Through the view screen, they watched as an enormous, organic-looking craft, unlike anything they'd ever seen, approached. Its surface rippled and pulsed with an inner light, more reminiscent of a living creature than a vessel. Before they could react, tendrils of energy shot out from the alien ship, enveloping their crippled vessel. Bobby and Raya braced themselves as they felt a pull, their ship drawn inexorably towards a gaping maw in the side of the alien craft. "Brace for impact!" Bobby shouted, grabbing Raya's hand. But instead of a crash, they experienced a moment of weightlessness as their ship was swallowed whole. They found themselves in a cavernous space that pulsed with bioluminescent light. "We need to secure Hawthorne and the Loyalists," Raya said, her tactical mind already assessing their situation. Working quickly, they bound their prisoners more securely, using salvaged materials from the ship. Hawthorne glared at them, his cybernetic implants glinting in the alien light. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he snarled. Ignoring him, Bobby and Raya cautiously exited their vessel. The docking bay they found themselves in was a marvel of biomechanical engineering. The floor beneath their feet seemed to shift and adjust to their weight, while tendrils of light danced along the walls. Bobby's enhanced senses tingled. "Do you feel that?" he asked Raya. "It's like vibrations, pulses." Raya nodded, her iconian intuition picking up on the same sensations. "It's as if the ship is alive," she marveled. As they ventured deeper into the alien vessel, the pulsing sensations grew stronger. Corridors shifted and realigned as they walked, guiding them deeper into the heart of the ship. Suddenly, they found themselves in a vast chamber. Tall, willowy figures emerged from recesses in the walls. Their skin shimmered with patterns of light, changing and flowing like liquid constellations. One of the aliens stepped forward, its body language conveying curiosity. A wave of mental energy washed over Bobby and Raya, carrying with it concepts and images rather than words. "They're telepathic," Raya gasped, her pupils dilating from the alien contact. Bobby nodded, his own hybrid physiology allowing him to partially interpret the alien communication. "They call themselves the synaptics," he said slowly, piecing together the information. The lead synaptic's skin flared with patterns of light. In their minds, Bobby and Raya received a series of images. Earth, Iconia, decades of secret observation, the recent conflict, and finally themselves. Bobby and Raya, shining as beacons of potential. "They've been watching us," Raya realized, "humans and Iconians, for years." Another wave of communication washed over them. Bobby's eyes widened as he interpreted the message. They intervened because of the conflict. They believed it would destabilize this entire sector of space. The synaptic gestured towards them, its skin pulsing with interest. In their minds, Bobby and Raya saw images of themselves, their hybrid physiology highlighted and enhanced. "They're fascinated by us," Raya said, "by what we've become." The aliens' next communication was accompanied by a surge of energy that made Bobby and Raya's hybrid bodies tingle. They saw visions of themselves evolving further, their unique abilities expanding beyond anything they'd imagined. "They're offering to help us," Bobby said, his voice filled with awe, "to accelerate and stabilize our transformation." But with the offer came another vision. Bobby and Raya standing alongside the synaptics, mediating conflicts across the galaxy, bringing peace to warring species. Raya frowned. "It's not just an offer, it's a condition. They want us to join them." As they grappled with the implications of this offer, a commotion erupted behind them. They turned to see Hawthorne, somehow free of his restraints, interfacing with a synaptic control panel. His cybernetic implants sparked as they connected with the alien technology. "No!" Bobby shouted, but it was too late. Alarms blared throughout the ship as Hawthorne initiated a lockdown sequence. Walls shifted, cutting Bobby and Raya off from both Hawthorne and the synaptics. The ship's interior began to reconfigure rapidly, transforming into a complex, ever-changing labyrinth. Bobby and Raya found themselves trapped, the path ahead constantly shifting and reforming. "We need to stop him," Raya said, her eyes darting around, searching for a way out. Bobby nodded, his mind racing. "And we need to convince the synaptics to shut down their defenses. Who knows what Hawthorne could do with access to their systems?" As they set off into the maze, they could feel the ship's energy building around them, growing more unstable by the second. They knew that somewhere beyond the confines of this alien vessel, their allies would be detecting the surge, preparing for the worst. Time was running out. With each step through the shifting corridors, Bobby and Raya knew that the fate of not just themselves, but of human Iconian relations, the synaptics, and perhaps the entire solar system, hung in the balance. Their hybrid abilities would be tested to their limits as they navigated this biomechanical labyrinth, racing to stop Hawthorne and avert disaster. As they pressed on, the ship pulsed around them, a living maze that held both incredible danger and the key to an unimaginable future. As they pressed on, the ship pulsed around them, a living maze that held both incredible danger and the key to an unimaginable potential. Bobby's fingers brushed against the organic walls, feeling the ship's energy coursing through his hybrid physiology. His mind raced, processing the alien technology at an unprecedented rate. Suddenly, he felt a connection forming, a neural link with the ship's biomechanical systems. "Raya, I think I can override Hawthorne's lockdown," he said, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "But I need you to watch my back." Raya nodded, her enhanced senses already scanning their surroundings. As Bobby interfaced with the ship, she felt her telepathic range expand, picking up on the confusion and alarm of the synaptics. The corridors around them shuddered and shifted, walls peeling back to reveal new pathways. Bobby grinned, his connection to the ship growing stronger by the second. "Got it. I can track Hawthorne's movements now." They sprinted through the pulsating passages, encountering a series of obstacles. A wall of nanobots swarmed towards them, but Raya's lightning-fast reflexes allowed her to dodge and weave through the metallic cloud. Bobby's enhanced strength came into play as they reached a sealed doorway, his muscles straining as he forced the organic material apart. As they progressed deeper into the ship, they stumbled upon a vast chamber filled with stasis pods. Each pod contained a different combination of hybridized alien species, suspended in a glowing fluid. "By the stars," Raya breathed, her eyes wide. "This is why they're so interested in us. We're not just an anomaly, we're the next step in their research." Before they could process this revelation, a violent tremor shook the ship. Bobby's connection to the vessel's systems flooded his mind with data. "The energy buildup is reaching critical levels. We need to move fast." They raced through the twisting corridors, drawing closer to Hawthorne's position. Suddenly, the ship's gravity inverted, sending them tumbling towards the ceiling. Bobby grabbed Raya's hand, anchoring them both as they adjusted to the new orientation. "The main control hub is just ahead," Bobby called out, his free hand tracing patterns on the wall to stabilize the ship's systems. "Hawthorne's there, and he's interfacing with the synaptic technology." They burst into the control hub, a cavernous space filled with swirling bioluminescent patterns and pulsing organic consoles. Hawthorne stood at the center, his cybernetic implants sparking as they merged with the alien tech. "You're too late," Hawthorne snarled, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "I've seen what these aliens are capable of. Humanity needs this power, and I'll be the one to harness it." Bobby and Raya moved in perfect sync, years of training and their hybrid physiology allowing them to anticipate each other's actions. They dodged Hawthorne's attacks as he manipulated the ship's defenses, sending tendrils of energy lashing out at them. The battle raged on, each blow and counterattack causing further damage to the delicate biomechanical structure of the ship. Alarms blared, the energy buildup reaching dangerous levels. Suddenly, the air around them shimmered and coalesced into a swirling mass of energy and bioluminescent patterns. The synaptic AI hybrid entity had manifested, engulfing Bobby, Raya, and Hawthorne in its consciousness. In an instant, their minds were linked, floating in a sea of shared awareness. Hawthorne's motivations laid bare before them, his fear of alien influence, his misguided belief that he was protecting humanity. At the same time, Bobby and Raya found themselves awash in the collective knowledge of the synaptics. Eons of history, the intricacies of their genetic experiments, and their grand vision for galactic stability flooded their consciousness. As they grappled with this influx of information, a familiar presence touched their minds. Dr. Alara's voice, distant but clear, echoed through their shared mental space. "Bobby, Raya, can you hear me? The energy discharge from the ship could devastate the entire solar system. You need to stabilize it now." The urgency of the situation crystallized in their minds. Bobby and Raya focused their combined will, pushing back against Hawthorne's influence within the shared consciousness. They initiated a complex sequence of biomechanical adjustments, their hybrid physiology allowing them to interface with the ship's systems on a level even Hawthorne couldn't match. As they worked to redirect the building energy, the synaptic AI hybrid entity began to fragment, unable to maintain its cohesion under the immense strain. The disintegration threatened to release a burst of psionic energy that could alter the minds of every being in the vicinity. Bobby and Raya found themselves at a crossroads, the fate of three species hanging in the balance. They could attempt to shut down the ship's systems entirely, potentially destroying a wealth of advanced technology and knowledge, or they could risk channeling the psionic energy through their own hybrid physiology in a desperate attempt to safely disperse it. Time seemed to slow as they weighed their options, the energy levels approaching critical mass. The ship trembled around them, the very fabric of reality threatening to tear apart. Bobby's eyes met Raya's, a silent communication passing between them as they prepared to make their choice, a decision that would shape the future of interspecies relations and potentially unlock new realms of genetic and technological advancement. With the clock ticking down and the fate of multiple worlds hanging in the balance, Bobby and Raya steeled themselves for what was to come. The next few moments would determine not just their own fate, but the course of history itself. Bobby and Raya locked eyes, their decision crystallizing in an instant. They would channel the psionic energy through their own hybrid bodies, risking everything to save not just themselves, but countless others. Together, Bobby said, his voice barely audible over the ship's alarms. Raya nodded, squeezing his hand. Always. They reached out, connecting with the fragmenting, synaptic AI hybrid. The moment their minds made contact, a surge of energy coursed through them. Their bodies began to glow, bathed in an otherworldly light that pulsed in sync with the ship's biomechanical systems. The strain was immediate and intense. Bobby's muscles tensed, his skin rippling as it shifted between human and iconian textures. Beside him, Raya's form flickered, her features blurring as she struggled to maintain cohesion. Through their mental link, they shared strength, encouraging each other without words. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing second, their minds intertwining as they worked to contain and redirect the volatile energy. Hawthorne, still trapped in the shared consciousness, gasped as a flood of memories and experiences washed over him. He saw through the eyes of humans, iconians, and synaptics alike. Centuries of history, countless perspectives, and a wealth of emotions overwhelmed him. His long-held beliefs began to crumble under the weight of this new understanding. Outside the ship, Admiral Tanaka's task force watched in awe as the synaptic vessel began to emit pulses of multicolored energy. On the bridge of the flagship, officers scrambled to make sense of the readings flooding their screens. "Energy levels are stabilizing, sir," reported a young ensign, her voice filled with disbelief. Tanaka leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the pulsing ship. "What in the name of all that's holy are they doing in there?" Inside the synaptic vessel, Bobby and Raya's efforts reached a crescendo. The energy flowing through them built to an almost unbearable level. Their bodies glowed brighter, the light so intense that it seemed to bend reality around them. "Hold on," Bobby gritted out, his voice strained. "Almost there." Raya's response came through their mental link, a wave of perseverance and love that bolstered Bobby's drive. With a final push, they channeled the psionic energy outward. A blinding flash erupted from their joined forms, expanding rapidly to fill the entire ship. The resulting shockwave rippled through the vessel, the station, and the surrounding space. On the research station, Dr. Alara shielded her eyes as a wall of light washed over the observation windows. Alarms blared as sensors and communication systems overloaded, temporarily blinded by the energy surge. As the light faded, Bobby and Raya found themselves changed. Their bodies had seamlessly merged human and iconian traits, creating a perfect balance between the two species. Bobby flexed his hand, watching in fascination as his skin shifted from human to iconian and back again. "Raya," he breathed, turning to his partner. "Are you okay?" She nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "I feel incredible, like I'm finally whole." Around them, the synaptic ship hummed with renewed energy. The biomechanical systems pulsed with life, repairing and reconfiguring themselves. The surviving synaptics, freed from their merging with the ship's AI, began to materialize throughout the chamber. One of the willowy figures approached Bobby and Raya, its skin shimmering with patterns of gratitude. A wave of mental communication washed over them, conveying deep appreciation for their intervention. Hawthorne, still reeling from his experience in the shared consciousness, stumbled forward. His face was a mask of conflicting emotions: shame, wonder, and a newfound understanding. I was wrong, he said, his voice hoarse, about everything. What I've seen, what I've felt. I can't go back to who I was before. Bobby and Raya exchanged a glance, sensing the profound change in the man who had once been their enemy. What will you do now? Raya asked, her tone cautious but not unkind. Hawthorne straightened, a look of purpose replacing his earlier confusion. I'll make this right. Use what I know to dismantle the conspiracy, to show others what I've learned. It's the least I can do. As the immediate crisis subsided, Bobby and Raya turned their attention to the synaptic ship's systems. With their new hybrid physiology, they found they could interface with the alien technology more easily than ever before. We should contact the station, Bobby said, his fingers dancing over a pulsing organic console. Let them know we're okay. Raya nodded, reaching out with her mind to help establish the connection. As they worked, both of them marveled at how natural it felt to shift between their human, iconian, and hybrid forms. A holographic display flickered to life, showing the anxious faces of Dr. Ilara and Admiral Tanaka. "Bobby! Raya!" Ilara exclaimed, relief evident in her voice. "What happened? Are you all right?" "We're fine, Doctor," Raya assured her. "Better than fine, actually. But it's a long story." Tanaka leaned in, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "We registered an enormous energy surge. The entire sector's been lit up like a Christmas tree." "Sir," Bobby said, straightening unconsciously, "request permission to return to the station with our guests." He glanced at the synaptics and Hawthorne. Tanaka's eyebrows shot up, but he nodded. "Granted, but I expect a full debriefing as soon as you're aboard." As the communication ended, Bobby and Raya turned to face their unlikely companions. The synaptics moved gracefully around the chamber, their bodies pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Hawthorne stood to one side, his posture that of a man coming to terms with a radical shift in his worldview. "Ready to make history?" Bobby asked, a small smile playing on his lips. Raya took his hand, her skin shimmering with a mix of human and iconian characteristics. "Let's show them what the future looks like." Together they began to prepare for their return to the station, knowing that the events of the past few hours had irrevocably changed the course of human, iconian, and synaptic relations. As they moved through the ship's reconfiguring corridors, Bobby and Raya could feel the weight of possibility settling on their shoulders. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, a living bridge between worlds.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.